President Donald Trump has announced a trade deal with Japan that he said will result in Japan investing $550 billion into the United States.
Japanese goods will now be facing tariffs of some 15%. That's instead of the 25% tariff.
US President Donald Trump says the US has reached a trade deal with Japan. Trump says the agreement will see Japan invest $550 billion.
The cameras kept flashing as Donald Trump strode to the podium, radiating confidence. He hailed it as the grandest trade deal in U.S. history. Reporters jotted down notes frantically as he revealed the figure. $550 billion, signed, sealed, and supposedly locked in. It was meant to be a defining triumph, evidence that his aggressive tariff approach was compelling allies to pour investments directly into America. But mere weeks later, the victory began to crumble dramatically. Tokyo abruptly backed out. On live national television, Japan's new prime minister shredded the agreement, labeling it a danger to national interests. What started as a White House photo op spiraled into a diplomatic crisis. Reuters reported that Japan's finance ministry outright refused to release a single dollar unless Washington relinquished control over how the funds would be spent. The yen faltered, Wall Street reeled, and the White House fumed. This wasn't just Japan saying no. It was Asia drawing a line. Enough. And beneath that defiance loomed a question now rippling across Pacific capitals. Has America lost its grip on its closest allies? On October 1, 2025, Japan's chief negotiator, Ryo Akazawa, faced the cameras and firmly denied that Washington would have sole authority over Japan's pledged funds. Tokyo, he declared, would retain control over project selection through its own development bank. The statement seemed technical, but was a bold challenge to U.S. dominance. Markets sensed the trouble immediately. Analysts realized the Trump-Japan partnership, unveiled with fanfare just months earlier, might not last its first quarter. In July 2025, Trump had announced the accord on the White House lawn, flanked by American automakers and energy tycoons. He called it the largest trade deal ever signed, claiming it would slash Japanese export tariffs from 27.5% to 15%, while funneling hundreds of billions from Japanese investors into U.S. industries. Shipbuilding, liquefied natural gas, semiconductors, and energy infrastructure. Bloomberg quoted Trump boasting that America would claim 90% of the profits. The optics were victorious. Yet, behind the scenes, negotiators from both sides privately cautioned that the framework was legally shaky and heavily tilted in America's favor. It wasn't a binding treaty, just a political agreement open to reinterpretation. In Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, the backlash was immediate. Then Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who signed the deal under months of U.S. tariff pressure, saw his approval ratings plummet below 20%, per the Financial Times, as critics accused him of sacrificing Japan's fiscal autonomy, with detractors calling his final act less diplomacy than surrender. Enter Sanae Takaichi, sworn in as Japan's first female prime minister on October 4, 2025. She clinched party leadership by promising to reassess unfair commitments. The Wall Street Journal called her ascent a conservative recalibration, reflecting the worldview of her mentor, the late Shinzo Abe, hawkish on defense, wary of Beijing, yet fiercely protective of Japanese sovereignty. In her first televised address, Takaichi vowed to scrutinize any deal undermining Japan's interests. Those words chilled Washington's hopes. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, the mastermind behind Trump's trade framework, told reporters the U.S. expected allies to honor their commitments. Privately, though, Treasury officials feared Tokyo might redirect its promised funds through domestic channels rather than U.S. agencies. Reuters later confirmed those concerns. Japan was establishing a state-backed investment facility under the Japan Bank for International Cooperation to oversee the funds, keeping control firmly in Tokyo. Markets reacted swiftly. The yen briefly surged as speculation grew that Japan would slow dollar transfers, while U.S. defense contractor stocks, key beneficiaries of the deal, dropped nearly 6%. The Financial Times saw it as a subtle rebellion against Washington's economic strong-arming. The defiance spread to Seoul. South Korea, facing similar pressure, had signed a $350 billion framework promising tariff relief for investment. But after Japan's stand, Seoul's national security advisor told Reuters, "We cannot pay $350 billion up front." Trump had demanded immediate payments. South Korea rejected any such obligation. Asia, it seemed, was done following Washington's playbook. Back in the U.S., Trump vented during a televised cabinet meeting, insisting, "We secured the greatest deal ever, and Japan's already backing out." His administration doubled down, with Bloomberg reporting that Lutnick launched a U.S. investment accelerator to direct allied capital into critical sectors like Alaskan energy terminals and Midwestern semiconductor plants. Foreign governments, however, would get only a 45-day consultation window and no voting power, a deal breaker for Tokyo.